And perfect, we are live. Now it finally worked.
All right.
We had a little bit of delay, but I'm sorry for that, but I think it will be fine. So my name is Yuri Kofner. I'm an economist with the Munich-based conservative MIWI Institute for Market Integration and Economic Policy. Our today's topic is transatlantic defense cooperation and German sovereignty. My special guest today is Gerold Otten. He is a member of the German Bundestag for the AfD parliamentary group, a member of the defense committee there, colonel of the German Luftwaffe, and he formerly was a sales director with Airbus Defense and Space. So to say we have an expert in the field of defense cooperation is to say the least. Dear Mr. Otten, I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so it's 6 o'clock at night in Munich. It's noon time in Washington, D.C., where you're right now. Please tell us something about it. You're in Washington, D.C., in the United States. What are you doing there?
Yes, I'm a member of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, so basically it's in the NATO Parliament. German Bundestag has 12 delegates. I'm the only one from my party, and we're also 6 from the Bundesrat, from the second chamber, basically, of our parliament. Today and for tomorrow as well, I'm here as attending the 22nd Annual Parliamentary Transatlantic Forum. It's basically a session here. It's held at the National Defense University in Washington, D.C. And this is a place where U.S. forces basically train staff officers of foreign nations, giving them courses, can achieve a degree here. And this is basically where it's every year hosted, always at this time of the year. And we're discussing topics. Of course, this time everything is overshadowed by the Ukraine war. So all the speeches are dealing with the situation in Ukraine, military situation, economic situation. We just said last session was about the economic fallout of the war in Ukraine. So we had speakers from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. So this is a very broad field of topics.
It's not only broad, but it's very high level, I would say, and also very interesting and very recent. So just to step right in, because you said, of course, the main topic is the war in Ukraine. And, and I guess in English you have the same saying. There's a saying in German which says, each war plan lasts only as long until the first shot is fired. And another saying goes, each defense ministry prepares for the last war, but not for the next war. Now, NATO member states like Germany and the United States are able to look at a modern war, which is unfolding, the war in Ukraine. And when we look at this war, when we look at the pictures from this war, we have a mixed pictures, I think. On the one hand, we have very eerie pictures which remind us of trench warfare in the First World War. A lot of artillery, a lot of shelling, trenches everywhere, mud, and so on. On the other hand, you have a very high-tech drone warfare, drones dropping grenades on the trenches, but also far-range drones attacking air bases in Russia or energy infrastructure in Ukraine. Please tell us something about which lessons can we learn from the war in Ukraine on the future of warfare, which technologies maybe we didn't think about yet are going to shape the future of warfare the next decade.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You mentioned some relations to World War One or even World War Two, and you said that each army is fighting the last war with strategies and tactics. And it looks like that the Russian army is fighting the World War Two, at least what we see at the moment in the eastern Ukraine, where they are using a lot of artillery, where they basically fighting man against man in trenches. So that is what we see there, and so this is quite an interesting view of what we see. in this war. On
Mm-hmm.
the other hand, um, what we can learn out of this is that it's also an intelligence war. We see that a lot of target information is coming from the US and also from the UK to the Ukraine
Mm-hmm.
army. And so we see the high level of information. And what we also see is it's a war of modern technology. So we see that we have nowadays very precise artillery systems, which have a much longer range than it used to be. For example, these Mars multiple rocket launcher system has a range from 80 to more than 300 kilometers. So you can reach targets much in the strategic area of the enemy. You can attack supply lines in even in Russia, if you would. But it looks like they are not provided with these long range ammunitions. But they use, for example, drones. Drones you see uh, becoming more and more important in modern warfare. We saw that also in Azerbaijan and Armenia, the war, which was the decisive weapon, were drones on the Azerbaijani side.
Mm.
So that is a complete change now. So we see a mixture of traditional heavy weapons, tanks, artillery systems, but also modern systems. And we see also in hybrid war, we see also threats, attacks, cyber attacks on infrastructure. So this is a mixture of warfare. So it's old, let's say, traditional warfare, what we've seen over the last century, and influenced by modern technology.
Yes. So, in the German society, due to this war in Ukraine, there has been a change in attitudes towards the German Bundeswehr, the German army, and the question of armament or rearmament. Before the war in
Yeah.
Ukraine, it was so that the many parties, except your party, the AfD, all the other parties were against rearmament, and the German Bundeswehr was in a relatively poor state compared for an industrialized nation. And I now the Bundestag recently decided to fund the German army, the Bundeswehr, with a new budget, with a new fund of 100 billion euros until 2026, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me later. And which will be spent on new armament, on modernization of equipment, on the army. And my question here would be, now looking at the lessons we can see from the war in Ukraine, one issue which I noticed when I looked as a layman into this topic is that only the AfD party always wanted to equip the German Bundeswehr with drones, not only with like tactical drones to look at the battlefield, but also with defense and attack capabilities. Has this changed now? And which armaments is the German army going to receive from this 100 billion euros fund?
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the drones. That was a topic which was discussed for years in Germany, and we were talks were the discussion were around should these be armed or not? Should we have drones with weapons or not? So there was a discussion was mainly coming from the Green Party, from the left party, and our party, the AfD. We had from the beginning. We in the Bundestag since 2017. We already started in the first year with a new paper, which called is Streikkraft Bundeswehr, means a complete holistic approach to bring the Bundeswehr, the German armed forces, back to a modern and a system which
Yes.
is necessary for the future. So this is really the only party, because the other ones, like Christian Democrats, were in a coalition with the Social Democrats, and they were against armed drones. Interestingly, shortly after the war started in Ukraine, it has completely changed. We have now a new government, We have now a three-party coalition of the Liberals, Green Party, and the Social Democrats. Exactly these two parties, Social Democrat and Green Party, which were opposing armed drones, brought in a solution into the Bundestag in March. Now to arm the next generation of drones also for the Bundeswehr. So the same people sitting in with myself in the Defense Council, which were voting against armed drones for years, suddenly voted for armed drones. So that is what we see. So we will buy drones from Israel here on TP, which is what the contracts were already signed for buying for leasing these systems, and we will also now buy the weapons with that and the training for the personnel. So we will have armed drones after a long time. The other thing is what has dramatically changed is we had a special session of the Bundestag 3 days after the war started on 27th of February. And Chancellor Scholz made a speech, and he was using the term Zeitenwende, time shift, now for the Bundeswehr. So he said that Germany will spend 100 billion euros for equipment for the Bundeswehr, and that Germany will in the future reach the 2% goal, the NATO goal of 2% of the GDP for the armed forces. So the one thing is these 100 billion, which is a budget outside of the regular budget. It's basically additional money, which is getting from the financial market, and not out of the annual budgets, and so basically debts. And this is to be said for and designated for buying equipment. One thing he especially mentioned was the replacement of the Tornado fighter bomber aircraft with F-35s from the US. So because they play a special role in the German armed forces in the nuclear participation of NATO. So that means you have a dual capable aircraft which can carry conventional weapons and nuclear weapons as well. So you need a special type of aircraft for that. And so this role should be performed in the future with F-35s.
Yeah,
So
the
what we
question.
see now is,
Yes.
yeah,
Please, well, I have one question
this,
because before we go ahead with
yeah,
this,
sure.
is in the German media and maybe also among German patriots, there has been this like question. You have been working for many years for Airbus Defense, and now we are buying 45 times F-35s from Lockheed Martin, the main US American air defense company. You already mentioned maybe the one reason is that they have this dual defense capability of nuclear participation, but in Germany, certain circles they are asking themselves the questions: don't we have our own systems? Why can't we order our own stealth jets? Can you please maybe elaborate a little bit more on this? Which technologies
Yeah.
could Germany order from German armament companies, and which technologies we have to or we should buy from our partners in the United States?
Yeah, for example, with these special kind of mission, these nuclear capable aircraft is, of course, Eurofighter, which is an Airbus product, could fulfill this role as well. However, the US side wants the complete system of the aircraft. When they say, okay, we have to certify this aircraft for our weapons, we need to have the complete technical data of this aircraft. So in the European countries, this is a co-production of UK, Italy, Spain, and Germany. So most of the nations, of these four nations, don't want to give the whole information about this weapon system to the US. So that is the reason why we could not use a European aircraft for that. That is basically the technical problem with that. And so this is in this specific situation for replacing this aircraft. I personally also see no other option. But where I see the problem in buying F-35s is that normally when you buy in a foreign country military equipment, it is a deal that the nation where you purchase the system invests in your economy. It invests in military business. It invests in maintenance, repair, and overhaul for this weapon system. And this is all missing. This is all missing. It looks like that the contract is designed that way. We have to do everything in the US, so that these aircraft will be repaired and overhauled in the US. So basically, no uh, cashback is getting into our economy out of this deal. That is the main problem with the F-35, because it is, as we say in Germany, stitched with a hot needle. This contract, so which means it's very fast, a lot of pressure. We need to have a quick contract, and the other side knows, okay, you're under pressure. Then the prices go up, the conditions are bad for you, and this is a situation where we are in the F-35 deal, and the Minister of Defense is under a lot of pressure, even from their own party at the moment. All the people from the budget committee, from their own party, discussing it publicly or criticizing the F-35 deal publicly, because it's a $10 billion deal,
Yes.
and $10 billion going out of the German budget directly into the US economy and nothing back into our. And that is, of course, something I actually criticize as well.
Yes, yes. So, if I may ask for a question, on this because this
So
seems to be a
yeah,
very interesting issue, is that one alternative could be, or something, a compromise could be, well, if Germany is going to buy the American stealth bombers, from Lockheed Martin, the F-35s, then at least then the United States should invest in producing these stealth jets in Germany in cooperation of German partners, and to keep the upkeep and so on in Germany, which I would
yeah,
see as a
right,
potential cooperation compromise. But then the other question issue which you raised, and I found quite interesting, is that so the reason we have to buy, Germany needs to buy American fighter jets in this case, is because they need to have a nuclear capability, a dual capability. And because they need to
yeah,
have that, our European partners don't want to cooperate with the United States, because then information would be given to our transatlantic partners. But then
yeah,
again, and I'm coming to the conclusion now, is that as far as I understand, and again, I'm a layman in these issues, but Germany is not allowed to have nuclear weapons. So it's going to be American fighter jets within the Luftwaffe, the German Luftwaffe, which will have nuclear capabilities, but without Germany being allowed to have nuclear weapons, and which all both
right.
furthermore doesn't allow us to cooperate with the European partners. Please explain this all. This is a mess in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
kind.
It sounds a bit complicated, maybe for an outsider. But the one point is the why the other partners are not willing to open the or give this information open to the US is this is intellectual property of certain nations and also certain companies which produce these aircraft. And let's face it, Lockheed Martin is a competitor to Airbus on the world market. So you would not let him show into your books, into your secrets, and these are military secrets. So that is the main reason why they're not willing to open this information or share this information with the
Yeah.
US. And on the other hand, the US will not let you look into their technology. So the in the F-35, there are a lot of what we say black boxes. We don't know what is in there. We don't have any insight of the technology, because these black boxes, for computer and navigation computer and all these things, are classified. They are sealed, and they are going from maintenance and repair in a circle to the US and coming back from the US. And the maintenance is done in the US. So now non-US eyes are looking into these equipment. That is, it is common in the international market, especially in defense goods, to keep these things under your own control. And the US are very keen on getting other nations' information and to cover their own information, clearly. The other question was the nuclear weapons themselves.
Yes.
So of course, Germany has signed the Atomwaffensperrvertrag, so they are non-state which
Yeah.
cannot get access to nuclear weapons, but they don't have access to these nuclear weapons. The nuclear weapons are stationed in Germany at the in Büchel, the tornado base, um, under U.S. control. So they're inside this German base is a area where these weapons are stored, but this depot is guarded by U.S. military. So no German has access into these systems. So the weapons personnel which will later on mount these weapons on the aircraft are always under control of a U.S. guard. They are armed. They're looking that you don't do anything wrong with that or try to get these things off base, or so that they control it from the storage to the aircraft and until it's the aircraft has taken off. And the codes for releasing to arm these nuclear weapons coming directly from the U.S. president. So the final control of the release of these weapons is still under U.S. control.
Okay.
So basically, there is no German control and of these nuclear weapons. They only use the transport.
Yeah.
Basically, the transporter
But the
of
fighter
the
jets, sorry, but the
weapons.
fighter jets are
Yeah,
American,
fighter
but
jets belong to Germany.
they belong to Germany,
They belong to Germany.
to the
Yep,
Luftwaffe,
the
and the
Germans.
pilots are
Yeah,
Germans.
and the pilots are also Germans.
Okay,
Yes.
that is very interesting to say it
Yeah.
in a kind way. Thank you very much for that insight.
Mhm.
So, another question I would have is the recent years there have been discussions on the various levels about the future of a European army to be more sovereign,
Mhm.
to be more autonomous. Has this, in your experience, these discussions, have they somewhat changed, became less, or is there still talk about a more autonomous European army, or are we looking into only one single NATO for the future?
Yeah, I think the point where the or is it a time change? Are you? Can you hear me? Still
Yeah, we're
on the
having a little
line?
bit
So I
difficulties,
had
but I can
this
hear you.
noise.
Can you just please repeat one more time?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. I think here was a time shift in this situation. We had, especially when the UK left the EU, the idea of this European army came mainly from the French side, which were much in favor of a more integrated European defense, of course, under French control. Uh, Similar like NATO, to have European forces under a European commander, which would be French, of course, because French would be then the only nuclear power in the EU. This was the idea behind it, and actually we need to know in the European Union there are three pillars. This is based on three pillars. We want to see the freedom of trade and transport and personnel. The second role is the harmonization of the legal system in Europe. And the third pillar is the common defense and security policy and the common foreign policy of the EU. And in this third pillar, actually in the contracts of Lisbon, there's under Article 42 is actually said building of a European army. So it is stated somewhere in this European contract. So for years it was not really pursued, this idea, because when Britain was member of the EU, they were not interesting. They had never an interest in a more cohesion within the EU. But when they left, as I said, then the French took the chance and basically speed up this process. And together with Germany, of course, they are also under this idea from German policies. Everything which is more integration in Europe is supported by the German government. regardless of what color this government has. So when then there started certain initiatives. One was called PESCO, Permanent Structured Cooperation. A lot of projects were put into life, more mobilization and harmonization on industrial processes and so on, to bring this idea forward. There were even discussions on a European defense minister, defense commissar, actually, not a minister, a commissar, because that, and to have this directly at the EU Commission. So directly under von der Leyen, EU Defense Commissar. So this were the ideas 2018, 2019, 2020, in that way. With the Ukraine war, it's completely changed. And there were already skepticism in Eastern Europe. All the Eastern European countries were not so keen on a European army, because they always saw the US as their defense partner. And so they were relying on NATO. They said, okay, NATO is our guarantee with the US against Russian aggression. This will guarantee our sovereignty. And now with the war, it has completely. I'm sitting here in the parliamentary group, has completely changed. So it's in Eastern Europe countries and also other countries now are saying, okay, no, NATO is the guarantee for our security in Europe. We want NATO as the pillar which guarantees our sovereignty, our security, and we see our future in NATO. So we don't want a European army. We don't need double structures. We don't need two lines where we invest money. We want to invest in NATO. NATO is the organization. So this is what I want to clearly see. And this means in Europe, we have a dividing line. We'll have a new Iron Curtain in the future, which will run in Eastern Europe. We'll see it, of course, in the Baltic states. We'll see it Finland now, and Sweden will become members of NATO. So we'll have a long Iron Curtain now in Eastern Europe, which is clearly the borderline to Russia. And the Ukraine will be somewhere in the middle, because we all don't know how this war will end and how the maps of Europe will look in 4 or 5 years.
So, thank you very much for this insight. I see there's until now no future and maybe no need for a European army, and no interest in that sense from the European member states. So maybe could you please, from directly live from Washington DC, give your opinion, like some concluding remarks on the future of transatlantic defense cooperation and the role of Germany, maybe German sovereignty within this whole framework of transatlantic defense cooperation?
Yeah, I think let's start with Germany in this cooperation. I think we had this idea, and this is also an idea of our party from the AfD, that we say, okay, we need to strengthen the European pillar within NATO, which means we need to strengthen Germany in NATO, that we can play a bigger role, that can have more influence on decisions, because currently we are solely dependent on US decisions. The decisions in NATO are made here in Washington, and all the others have to follow, because we don't have the capabilities. We're spending basically in all other nations, NATO nations, not even the amount which the US alone spends for defense. So we need to spend more money for defense. We need to modernize our armed forces here, and this is basically our bargain, because when we in a deal, we need, what can you put on the table, and when we can say, okay, we have modern divisions, we have a modern air force, we have a modern navy, then we can say, okay, we have an influence. We can take certain responsibilities with the NATO, and then you become a respected member in NATO. At the moment, I have a lot of back talks here, and Germany people laugh about Germany or are very worried about the situation in Germany and say, what have you done? What are you doing? Not only in defense, also in economic situation, in energy question. Well, they say, are you crazy? You're closing down your nuclear power plants. You want to get rid of coal, and you want to get rid of gas. How do you want to run your electrical system in Germany? So this is what I hear in a lot of talks. And here are 26, 30 nations are here in Washington. Germany is really in an isolated position at the moment, and we need to show that we are more dependable, that we are a reliable partner in Europe and NATO. That is the main idea here. What I see,
Well,
and
yeah.
then we can play the role which we actually deserve, because Germany is one of the biggest economies, and we need to play this part. It is expected from us.
Mr. Otten, I don't know which better concluding remarks could have been made. We need to strengthen transatlantic cooperation, and we can do it by becoming stronger ourselves, by making Germany more reliable, stronger in the military and economic sense. We deserve it, and you are doing everything to defend national interests of Germany and the defense sphere. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for having the time to tune in from live from Washington, D.C. I wish you good talks, negotiations, and good luck and much success for the future. Thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah,
Otten.
thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and all the best to the viewers. Tune in and like.
We'll do it.
See
Thank you
you.
very much. Good success to
Bye.
Washington. Goodbye.
Bye.